Guys, welcome back. We are live Chris Evans Radio with Little Dave, fresh off an overall win. How'd that feel, man?
Yes.
Did I mute on you?
Yeah. Yeah. You totally just paused. So I don't know
All
what you
right,
said.
let's try it again. I said you were fresh off an overall win. How does that feel?
Oh, I'm stoked about it for sure. That's been a bunch of times we've been in that call out, you know.
Yeah,
That felt good.
that's such a cool feeling, right? It's one of those things where until you experience it, and then when you do, you're like, man, that felt really good. Um, because on that senior day in that venue and arena, you were the best dude competing with posing trunks on. And it's very much, or at least in my mind, it just validates like all of that hard work for that singular moment of having your name or number, however they call it, on stage, right?
Yep.
And it's such a cool feeling because I mean you've been living bodybuilding since before we met. Um, and to finally like walk through that door of being like, okay, it's finally that time.
Yeah.
And I think sadly, there's so many guys out there who are really good genetically and they just do nothing but win overalls. And they never get to appreciate that like you got to last weekend.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And then they go get smoked at their first pro show and they quit bodybuilding for the rest of the time.
Correct. Yeah. I mean,
Why does
that's
that happen so often? Like, well, if your hand thing's easy, it kind of go away easy too.
1,000%. And it was beyond again rewarding for me because I've seen you from almost ground zero
Yeah.
of this whole process. And I've always felt like I've had some really good guys that came to me young and new. And no one in terms of a dude has stuck with me for this long to develop this much muscle tissue. Because I mean, at this point, we're getting close to 100 pounds of muscle stage weight gained.
Yeah.
And like that's approaching a very, very small category of men. So that's a cool thing. And it's something I know you and I have talked about multiple times, never on camera, obviously.
Yeah.
But that's a definite goal for us. Because we
Yeah.
were joking back and forth, like if you would make supers or not.
Right.
Notice
Yeah.
I said make supers, where most people are like, oh, I want to suck down and make heavyweights. We were like, can we squeeze up into super?
Would have been fun.
Yeah, yeah. Because at the end of the day, like that's why you and I gel so well, is you have never said to me, Chris, make me make weight. It's always been something I've been aware of. Like if you were close, like let's say you were 200 on the scale after a couple meals and weigh-in was going to be say at 4 o'clock, I'd probably make you make light heavyweight.
Yeah.
And we just wouldn't eat or drink and we just postponed some meals and your body would flush fluid and then you would get on the scale at 198 and a quarter and go compete. But I mean, you've competed as a small heavyweight, you've competed as a small light heavyweight. Like it's just something we've never cared about. So I would like for you to talk to the viewers right now about that thought process and mindset because it's very rare.
Yeah. Well, it's more of just wanting to show off your best look versus like trying to look for the best category. Like I'm obviously not a classic bodybuilder. So like, and then the weight casts are just, in my opinion, if you're the shortest and biggest dude in the weight class, you're something's going well for you if you're the shortest and also the heaviest.
Correct. Yes.
So getting into me doesn't matter. It's more on how you look. Like, and for me, like my body hates pulling down hard.
Yes.
So like, yeah, let's go ahead and pull down. Let's make light heavies and suck down from 223 to 198.
Yeah.
Could we do it? Yeah, that's in the realm of 30 pounds of water loss. Like that's not impossible. I'm not just severely dehydrated at that point, but getting my body to look fine after the fact is just I'll look good next the 2 weeks following. So it's like why suffer for something that's not going to help me?
At the end of the day, I've always thought this, that bodybuilding is an illusion. And if you start getting below a certain weight and your illusion is getting worse, stop it. And we discovered that shit 2 preps ago at North Americans. Like, I had it in my mind, like, let's push you down. Let's see what you look like as a light heavyweight and be the top of that class. And we got you there, and you just looked like a shell of yourself. And
Yeah.
I refused to put you on stage looking worse than the previous year and knowing that you'd worked so damn hard to add new muscle tissue that I'm like, we're going to be a heavyweight. And you said, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And the closer you got over, the more you got over 200 pounds, each day you got better. And you were full and your body was alive and you were round and bubbly. And listen, like for someone who isn't genetically blessed with the shape and structure of, say, Flex Wheeler, like
Yeah.
you have to play the freak card. Like, and we do that by full muscle and hard muscle. And for you, not only do you lose fullness, but your muscle looks soft when I suck you down. Like,
Yeah.
and that's something a lot of people don't understand. Like they think, oh, well, if I let's say I sucked you to like 215 for this past show where you weighed in at 223, it would have been a subpar look. And it goes against where how we're taught with bodybuilding is suffer, suffer, suffer. The lower you get, the better you're looking. For you, that's just simply not the case.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it might be the case for some people. A lot of the people, it really isn't. Like,
Right.
you know, and finding that balance of what makes you look the best and how you can get there the best for your body that's what makes bodybuilding fun, because everybody's gonna be slightly different.
Yep.
There's no, like, yeah, you have plenty of people who are just cookie cutter approaches who are just going to be like, all right, less food, more cardio, more drugs,
Yeah.
and let's see what happens. This is that's how you're going to look, and that's the only way you can do it.
Yep.
It's like, well, I mean, that's there's a lot of other variables there, you know.
Right. I mean, I always have felt like each prep you have a body part that wants to lose fullness, and
Yeah,
it changes in cycles. It's weird, but once I locate it, I just keep an eye on it. Right. So for this time, it was your legs. Right. If your
yeah,
legs would start to come in, I'm like, up, bump that food up, chill off the
yeah,
cardio. Don't do PM cardio. Maybe take a 20-minute easy walk in the morning. Don't do it at all. I'm going to take your carbs and triple them. Like, and then we just manage that. And when you have those days where it's like you'd send me photos and you would be better and better, and it's like those better looks were always coming off the backside of a feed, meaning more
yep,
food. So it's for the coaches out there or people who self-coach, I highly encourage you have to assess photos and look and see when you are the best. And it's the scale. Sometimes the best thing to do is just throw that out the window for some people. And now, listen, I'm not one of those guys who says don't ever check it. Like I have you skinning your scale weight to me all the time because I'm just curious. Like I want to know where it's at and where that look
yeah,
is. But I think some people become so hyper focused and vigilant on it, they forget to watch their physique. And maybe just because your abs look better or your waist looks more sunk in, like if your waist is sunk in, but you lose 2 inches off your quads and 2 inches off your shoulders, it doesn't matter how small your waist looks.
oh yeah, yeah. Now
It,
you made that where the proportions are off now.
yes. And, that's one of the things of every photo you shared with me or video of you on stage is everything was so round and jumping off the bone. That's why you won.
Yeah,
That's also why you'll be competitive at USA's. Is if we don't do that, if I bring you in like a damn Holocaust victim and just suck you down to nothing, yes, your glutes may be 2% harder, but your body is 12 to 20% worse. Like,
yep,
and I can tell you, I learned that from John. Is he's like, Chris, you have to watch the weak body parts like a Hulk. And if they start disappearing, it doesn't matter if you get a little bit more crispness out of the glutes or wherever you store fat. For you, that's not your glutes, by the way. Um,
yeah,
the glutes aren't you. That's me. For you, the feedback you got was your back needs to get a little crisper, right? So
yep,
we have to watch that. So for me now going forward with you, it's like, all right, you need to make sure everything stays full, but we got to inch leaner in the up for the upper back. So it's easy. All right, so I got a little ahead of myself talking about what we're going to do next. Let's
yeah,
go back and talk a little bit about the week of in terms of how I fed you and then what your training looked like and then we'll get into like cardio and supplements and all that fun stuff.
Oh my goodness. I think the funniest thing is the day before the show when we trained, there was a good amount of people in that there. The gym owner was like, don't you go on stage tomorrow?" I was like, "Yeah, why?" He's like, "I thought people were supposed to tone us down." I was like, "Well, I kind of did."
Right. Yeah, we aren't going full tilt today. And volume is pared way down. Yeah, so I can tell you this, like I knew from just working with you that you do well with movement, you do well with food, and I just want to move it around.
Yeah.
We weren't in the gym trying to break records, by the way, this last couple of days. But at the same time, I knew like you're going to go in there and you'll probably go at like 75 to 85%. Your volume will be pared back to probably like 70 to 60%, depending upon what workout I gave you. You're going to be in there under an hour and then go home and eat and shuttle food. And like that's always in my thought process. I've just never been scared to make people train because if you always look good training, what's one more day going to do? Like,
Yeah.
it goes back to I hate rules. And if anything, like I've always felt like not necessarily that I'm like a anti-authoritarian or I just don't like being told what to do. I like to be a free thinker. And if it looked like, hey, like let's go pump up your back a little bit. And that's what we did.
Yeah, that's super. I always like to know why the rules exist
Yeah, I'll
and
agree.
like why they got written. Like, like if you're on a commercial flight and they're like, make sure you have a seatbelt on. It's like, did this get written because they just don't want fucking people walking about? Because
Right.
this fucking plane goes down, this is not helping me.
Right. Right. It's like one of those. Listen, this may be highly controversial. When we were going through all that C word shit, and they're like, the gyms are closed, but McDonald's is open. We're here to protect your health.
Yeah.
Hey, hold on. Back that up. You're gonna take away working out to strengthen our lungs and heart, but you're gonna say we can smash trash food. Okay, got it. We're on board. We're on the same
Yeah,
plane.
makes sense.
So again, like, I think in bodybuilding, what people do, right, is one person gets an incredible shape, and then everyone wants to copy that blueprint thinking it's going to work for them. So someone said, "Oh, I took the day off before the show and I look great." And they're like, "Okay, that's the answer. Write it down. It's in stone. No one can train the day before a show." Or, "Oh, like you need diuretics. You have to have them." I'm trying to think of all the other bodybuilding cliches, right? Like a lot of times it's just don't pull your
Oh,
G.
salt is bad for you.
1000%.
That one's hilarious. Like I actually, some kid at the gym, he was competing at a show the same weekend as me, but in
Right.
Idaho.
Oh yeah.
He was going up there to compete, and he's like, "Man, my lower body's so inflamed." Like he had water retention. And I was
Yeah.
like, "How much salt are you eating?" He's like, "I cut all of it out." I was like, "Add that back in, see what happens." 2 days later, he comes back. He's like, "Well, the water's gone." I was like,
Yep.
"No." He's like, "I thought salt was bad." He's like, "Well, obviously it's not."
Can I tell the funny
The
thing?
balance of things.
The funny thing you talked about salt is today I was so busy on my phone while I was making my pre-lift meal, I forgot to put salt and pepper on my chicken and rice.
Yeah,
I sit down to eat it, and I'm like, "This tastes fucking terrible. What's wrong with it?" I'm like, "There's no salt on it. Oh, there's no pepper on it." It was that. Listen, I like that meal, and it'd have been hard to get down with no salt. It's
yeah.
salt not only makes the body look better, but it elevates the flavor of your food. So, fun
Mhm.
fact, like the fastest way to make a food non-palatable, like I used to really watch a ton of Gordon Ramsay, and the number one critique he gives to professional chefs, more salt, more salt. So I guess I always just took that to heart. I'm like, oh, if you want your food to taste good, it's gonna be heavily salted.
Well, it's also like it helps your fullness throughout the day too.
Oh yeah, agreed.
Like it's just one of those things. It's just like cool. It helps me with my, and you got your better hydration from it. All those things, as long as water is properly managed. And
That's something I'm always it really gets under my skin when I hear a competitor say, "Oh, my carbs are below," and then fill in the blank. 100, 150, 75, I don't know, fill in the blank. See, my carbs are at 0. I can't get a pump in the gym. And I'm like, "What's your water like?" I don't know. I don't really track it. Under a gallon. What's your salt like? I don't know. I don't put a lot of salt in my food. Okay, can we change those two things? Like take your water to 7 liters a day and heavily salt everything. Have a couple ounces of pickles before your meal, or before your pre-lift meal, or with it. And the next thing they're like, Chris, I have a huge pump. I'm like, pretty much, bro.
Yeah.
Those two simple things. Like, I think so many times, like, people get it twisted and they're like, they hear me and you maybe like joke around about like Serostem's the reason we can stay full on low carbs. But okay, yes, that's the truth. It does work. But at the same time, like, I believe in my heart, if my water wasn't high, my salt wasn't high, and I wasn't taking proper intra workout nutrition, like, that, it's not just the GH. It's not. It's
Yeah.
a synergistic effect of all of those things I just listed.
Yeah, exactly. It's what there's a lot of things like that in life. Like, yeah, this might help you do something better, but you have to also do A, B, and C for D to be a player in the game.
Yeah, correct. Yes, agreed. All right, so we talked about your training, your food. Honestly, we just left it similar, all the same foods, nothing
Yeah.
fancy. Like, I just kind of weighed your carbs based upon where your fullness was. They were never low. They were never sky high in comparison to like maybe some things we've done in the past or in your all season.
Yeah.
Fat was moderate. I didn't go low, moderate, or high fat. It was just right in the middle. Water, we did not adjust one singular bit.
Yeah, legitimately at finals I had 8 liters of water in me.
That he didn't say 8 ounces. That was liters for the whole day. So if you don't know liters, that is 2 gallons of water. And okay, please just hear this. Like, I didn't pull water at all. I didn't even tell you water. I said just keep the same. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, exactly.
Drink is no
I had a
anyone.
coffee though, so that was the diuretic we had.
No Lasix, no Diazide, nothing. Like,
Yeah.
no Letro, no. We didn't even use a Remedex for fuck's sake. Like,
No.
okay, so again, breaking 100% of the rules. Hard training works. Getting in shape and then just filling up with good,
Yeah.
clean food. That's literally the moral of this story is that. And I posted this on Instagram. So many people believe that is the culmination of one 16, 18, 20 week prep. It's not. It's the last 7 to 8 years of your life that led to
Yeah.
that moment that let me do that type of like peaking. I'm saying peaking. It wasn't a peak. I
It was a,
told you
yeah, it
I'm
was a
the
normal
anti-peaking
Saturday.
coach. I'm literally the anti-peaking coach. And it worked. And again, it's because I don't know how many sets of photos you sent me.
Yeah.
After every meal, at least for the last 3 days.
Yeah.
If anything went haywire, you sent me photos, which it didn't. Post the photos or videos every time. Like, and then I just base that food and look off of an instinct of knowing his body. So I mean, outside of that, guys, like the biggest freaking takeaway that I cannot stress to you all enough about Dave's progress and success this past weekend is it stems from his relentless pursuit of this journey, quest, feat, endeavor at this point in life. Like that's the secret. And everyone wants to know what I do special with you. And the answer is not. You just follow the plan.
Yeah. Yeah. We're not taking 8 steps backwards because I fall off plan after a show.
Nope.
You know, we're not taking 2 months off in the off season because I want to go dink around and not bodybuild. Like I am just taking one step at a time in the right direction, where most people will take 10 steps in the right direction and veer off course for a week and then go back on. And the fun part about that is you might kind of head in the right direction, but you still have to course correct. And that course correct leads to lost progress or wasted time.
Agreed. Yep.
You know,
And that
so
also that skews my eye too, right? Like, because it's like a chink in the armor. And then I have to start planning for that chink. Like, okay, how long before he's gonna fall off again? How long before he can't take eating this much food? How much longer before he can take, if I up his cardio, he's like, Chris, I can't do it. Like, there's none of that. Like, the only minor setbacks we've ever had is slight little injuries, which thank God none of those have happened that are big. And then occasionally we run into some digestive issues, and we either fix that with a 24-hour fast or me just pulling your food down or pulling some foods out and putting others in.
Yep.
And that may take what, 2 to 3 days max to fix itself. Like,
Yeah.
so if let's say on a Friday, you're like, hey man, like my stomach is fucked. We gotta do something. By Sunday, your check-in, boom, it's back to normal. Hey, digestion's flying. Yes, we may have had to say pull back calories, 500, 600 calories, or flipped out something for something like I'm just gonna make something up here, eggs for turkey, or chicken or fill in the blank. Like, and then you're right back on it. Like,
Yeah. And we've had days where we spent the day off of it. We'd taken a day of fasting or
yep,
stuff like that. And that's a quick course correct. Like, okay, cool. Now the next day we eat. Then the day after that we train,
correct.
you
Yes.
know.
Yep.
So it's pretty easy fix. It's not like, not stepping back too far. Yeah, it's
No,
just one step backward, another one step forward.
right.
You
Yep.
know.
And I think one of the things that we discussed, or at least I know I took down in my notes, is I didn't aggressively push your food super hard in the off season. Now, I want people to hear this. It was higher than most people, but I've went harder on you before.
Yeah. We've
And
had we've had some times where it was high.
yeah. And what I kind of found with you is if I can get your food to like 85 to 90% threshold and you have zero digestive issues and can train hard, you will grow incredibly well off of that. And because your body's going under less stress, very rarely did you ever report to me like, man, like I don't want to eat any meals today. Like,
Yeah.
or a meal is causing me anxiety. Like, and I know not a lot of people understand that, but if you've done bodybuilding aggressive in the off season and you get to 4 meals and you're like, fuck, I don't know where these next two are going to go. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. You eat meal number 5 and you're like, fuck.
mhm.
All right, cool. We got sometime at some point I do want to go to bed.
So here's my thought process with that, right? I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take a dog walk.
Yep.
I'm gonna have a small coffee. Hopefully, I'll have a huge shit, and my
Yeah.
stomach will clear. Like, and then it's like, okay, maybe if I take a nap on the couch, I'll wake up and I'll be ravenous.
Yeah.
And you wake up and you're like, fuck. Okay.
Yep.
And you just go in the kitchen, you're like, okay, let's just make it. I know what I got to do. That plate of food ain't beating me today. I'm going to win the absolute day in the
Yep.
words of Hunter. Like, I'm not going to bed
Yep.
with 5 or 5.5 meals in me. Like, okay.
Yeah. I'm not eating a partial. I can't tell you the times we have pushed food and that scenario happens. Meal 6, if it's 9:30 at night. And the last thing I want to do is eat,
Yes.
you know.
Agreed. Yep.
So things that I've done it 1,000 times where I've just like, okay, here's the fucking blender, throw that in there, hit mix, and then just down it. I'm like, all right, cool. Now that's done and said and done.
Right.
I'm gonna go find a way to sleep and wake up again, and we'll have a meal 1 at 7 a.m.
Right. Yep. I can tell you this, like the amount of times I've done that and I'm like so miserable. I'm like, okay, what can I get now that's easy? And for me, I don't know about you, but I always refer back to a protein pancake. So
Yep.
white,
I do that too. Yeah, I do that too.
egg whites, ground oat flour, some kind of fruit, whether it be a banana, or something, cook it in coconut oil, and then put fucking sugar-free syrup on it, cut it into pizza slices. And it's just like, okay, I have 6 slices of this shit, and I can get it down. And I turn something on the TV that distracts my brain, and it's like 1 down, 5 to go, 2 down,
Yep.
4 to go. And it's literally I do it like that. Like,
Yep.
for all you guys
Actually,
out there.
same thing. If I make like a chicken sandwich with sourdough bread,
Yes.
like
Yep.
8 ounces of chicken,
Mhm.
2 to 3 slices of sourdough bread, depending on how big they are,
Right.
and then just like a couple pickles on there,
Mhm.
and then whatever fats. Like I'll just pour straight olive oil on it if I
Yeah.
need to,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
as like the sauce or whatever.
Mhm.
But that always goes down so easy for me. Where it's like, if it was chicken and rice, it would be like fuck.
Right.
Like, but that one's like, okay, cool. We got something like basically Chick-fil-A.
Agreed. Something else I'll do too is like I'll get ground beef and mince it up super fine, and then put rice in that, and then I'll put some beef stock in there, and then some sugar-free barbecue sauce, and you just make like this like slop bucket of bowl. I get a big spoon. And it's like, okay, cool. I probably have 42 spoonfuls into get into my mouth. I can do this.
Yeah, that's a good. Ground beef and rice is always delicious.
And it's like minimal chewing.
Yeah, it's just all mixed together.
Right. And that's good because it's like a little bit of savory. But what I also like about that pancake meal is like I've always found that if I can eat something semi-sweet, that goes down a lot easier when you're not hungry.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's like from being a kid. My mom was like, "Oh, if you eat all the food in your plate, you can have a dessert." And it's like, "Oh, this is my sweet treat at the end of the night." Like, I don't know, but I don't know how we get down that route of not eating.
Right.
But
Normal subjects.
yes, 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 yes. All right, so back to you. You know, I can tell you this, like as always, your preps are smooth with me. And that's because you send me regular check-ins. You do as you're told. I say do as you're told. You're not a child. Like you choose this. You follow the plan. That's the better way to put that, right? Like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
execute what I write for you. You don't overthink it. Meaning you don't go take the plan and ask all your buddies, like, hey man, like, what do you think about this? You think Chris is on the right track? Like, if you have a legitimate question, you ask me and say, hey, why are you doing this? And I'll tell you. And then if you say, hey, what if I had this instead of that, or maybe I'll take an off day today instead of training back, or what if I took this exercise and did RDLs instead of T-bar rows? Okay, cool. Because that's how you and I work. Like I'm all for
Yeah.
intelligent back and forth conversation.
Yeah. Communication is the best part about, I mean, this coaching does not work without communication
Agreed.
and honesty. Like if I was eating 3 out of 6 meals and telling you I was eating 6 out of 6,
Yeah.
your thought process, like, I mean, you're going to trust me to a degree, especially if you've never seen me actually eat 6,
Oh yeah.
right? But
Right.
then the time when that, if you start a prep that way, you're eating 3 out of 6, and then you get hungry, you're at meal 4, and it's like, all right, cool, progress completely stalled.
Yep.
What's happening?
Right.
You
Yep.
know, and then you're like, I'm still eating 6 out of 6. It's like, well, you're not even eating all of them, but now you're eating more than you were before,
Right.
and you're expecting me to just be able to read your mind and know what to do.
I've had literal preps where I've started with guys and I've pulled 500 to 600 calories from their all season plan, and then they check in the next week and they're up in weight. And I'm like, what happened? And they'll say, oh, I was only eating like 5 of those meals. Now I'm eating all 6 because you pulled some food and I'm hungry. So actually, I'm thinking their calories are down, their calories are up.
Yeah.
And it's like, fuck, okay, cool. Like, we're essentially going to have a 2 to 3 week period of you eating 6 meals, and I'm going to have to let your weight just stall to make that your new constant. Or I'm going to have to
Yeah.
go back and pull food. And I don't want to do that either because then we're starting prep in what I like to consider like a hole. Like that's one of the reasons that I don't think a lot of people, and I'm going to go over this really quick and we're going to get off here. One of the reasons you prep so well with me is your food is so high in the off season. I know I just said it wasn't, but it's very good starting point to where when I pull your carbs down to say 550 on a training day, you lose body fat off of that.
Yeah.
As opposed to if you were eating 250 grams of carbs and I have to pull it down to 200 and we're 16 weeks out and that barely elicited any fat loss, I don't have a lot of room to play with. Like, and I think that's what so few don't realize about prep and off season and prep and off season is it's all building and formulating that plan in the house to where your carbs were high, what most people would consider high until about 8 weeks out.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, yeah, they were probably high until like 4 weeks out for most people.
Yes. Right, right, right.
But yeah, exactly. I mean, those start points, that's the ongoing thing with bodybuilding. Like I said, those correct steps in the right direction lead you on a better path, versus going from eating whatever you feel like eating as an off season to eating a structured diet plan. Yeah, that will elicit some changes,
Yeah.
but your food's not going to be anywhere near as high as it should have been.
Yep.
Because you're eating how you feel comfortably.
Yeah. And that's such a frustrating process for not only me, but it's got to be frustrating for the client, right? It's like, well, Chris, man, you post all these photos of like these dudes in shape eating 600 grams of carbs. And I'm like, well, yeah, they put in 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 years of work with me to build a metabolism to where they can take that much in the all season to when we get prepping, they're already starting lean. And then when I pull their food back a little bit, they're next thing you know, they're vascular head to toe and it's fucking 12 weeks to go. Where most people are like fighting for that look at 4 weeks out.
Yeah.
We don't want that. So I think what we'll finish here with is, are there any like cool lessons or tidbits you learned, or maybe not necessarily learned new this prep, but you really leaned into for this one that you could pass on to anybody watching?
Honestly, I definitely, this was probably backstage. Like, yes, it was a home court advantage, but at the same time, like the amount of stress I had was like zero. Like, I thought it was funny because like people were losing it, like they always do. People lose their mind backstage. I'm just sitting there chilling, um, talking to one of my clients who I coached through the show.
Right.
I cared more about what was going on with him than like me. I was just like, all right, cool. I have these meals. I have this, some Rice Krispie treats in my bag for when whatever time, and like, how things go. And it's just like, okay, cool. Like, I'll just wait for them to call my number and tell me to get on stage and we'll go from there. I'm not going to be, it's like all those little variables. Like, I really just like focusing on things I can control versus like trying to focus on the whole thing. Because I can't tell you when the show's gonna. Every bodybuilding show runs late.
Right. Oh yeah.
Like, expecting it to be like, okay, cool. I've got here. It says we're gonna go on at 5. I'm gonna start pumping up at 4:30 because we're gonna go on at 5. It's like, well, that's fucking stupid. Like, like get shit already. Be prepared. But when the time comes, do things what to do. Like, it's not. We all know how to get a pump. Like, if you don't know how to get a pump, what the fuck are you doing at a backstage at a bodybuilding show? Like, we've all been training for a while.
Right.
That shouldn't be some complicated process. Like, we should be professionals at getting a pump.
Right.
We train 5 to 7 days a week for years.
Right.
Like,
Right.
like that's not anything to worry about. Like, it's just,
I'll always think about this too, right? Like the amount of times when we've been together for you at a show and like you'll strip down and you'll look incredible. No pump, no fancy tricks, nothing, right? So I've always thought about this. If I'm backstage and they say, all right, heavyweights line up, and we have like 3 minutes before you go on stage, you do some pull aparts for me, some push-ups, maybe some rows with a band. All this with bands, by the way. One set of like 15 each. I throw some vasoblast in your mouth and you're good.
Yeah.
You'll go out there and you'll look incredible. And no one will know that you didn't pump up for 20 minutes like you're supposed to, and you didn't have your special concoctions and elixirs. Like the reason you're going to look great is because you've been looking great for the last 2 weeks, last 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Like, and I think for me, the biggest takeaway is always to everyone is get in shape, and all that little shit don't matter.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't.
You're going to change. Yeah, with peaking, you're either going to get 5% better at top, or 100% worse.
Yes.
Like there's plenty of examples of people getting 100% worse from doing really stupid things.
Yes.
There's plenty of examples there, like pounding potatoes in salt water. I remember, what was that kid's name? I can't remember. It was a couple years back at junior nationals.
He calls himself the lad.
Exactly. I can't remember his name either.
Giovanni something.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good dude. Incredible bodybuilder. Yep.
Fantastic bodybuilder, but decided just to throw in a Hail Mary for whatever reason, right. And put on 20 pounds of water in like an hour.
Mm-hmm. Yep. When in great thing of life, as you said, take a deep breath, prop your feet up, eat what we've always eaten for the past 2 years, and everything will work itself out, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's what I think everyone has to remind themselves of is, and I know you get nervous, or not you, but it's more metaphorical. Like you see people around you and they're all pumping up, and you're like, man, they're not going to go on stage for 35, 40 minutes. How are you going to keep that for 40 minutes? Like, you know how much better you would have served yourself? Like going over, propping your feet up, maybe sipping some water. Like, oh yeah, going and taking a piss. Like, hey, maybe you went and go take a shit. Like, no, all things that would serve your look better than a hour and a half pump up.
Yeah.
Like, always wondered this, and this is not any shade towards men's physique. Men's physique in a bodybuilding show is typically always towards the end, and they're the first dudes pumping up. I don't get it. I'm like,
they're also, for whatever reason, they have to be first in line. They get glazed. Like, so in bodybuilding, they started with the masters, and then started with supers, and then they went down heavy to light, right?
Okay. Yep.
And no joke, they called the heavies out to get glazed,
Mhm.
and like 4 men's physique guys showed up. They're like, "We want to get glazed too," and I was like, like have at it, like go get glazed, but you're gonna be fucking here for 40 minutes.
I don't know about you too. That shit feels terrible on my skin. I hate it. I'm
Oh,
like,
I hate it too.
I want as little a time with that shit on my body as humanly possible.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're like, I want to be backstage for 3.5 hours with glaze on. No, fuck that.
Yeah.
All right, guys, there you have it. Dave, overall champion. That's got to feel good, right? You got a gas
Mhm.
gift card. Did they give you a cool
Yeah.
overall trophy or?
Yeah, cool overall trophy. You got another Wolfpack bag,
Oh, hell
weight
yeah.
belt.
Yes.
The weight belt's hanging up at Butler now.
Oh, heck yeah.
And yeah, that was goodies in there.
Yeah.
So
I think the cool thing too is like I could all the videos that I saw of it, like you could definitely tell your friend, a lot of your friends and family were there.
yeah,
And that's such an incredible feeling, right? Like
yeah,
the first overall I won, like my entire family was there, and then a
yeah,
couple of my good buddies, and
yeah,
it just makes it more enjoyable, like 'cause I think we've all been to bodybuilding shows where the guy or girl who wins overall, they get like a couple of cheers, and then they just, all right, cool. Like
yeah,
it's always a little bit better when you have some support and
yeah,
knowing that, people really appreciate all the hard work you put in. And, I know your friends and family, there's no question in their mind, like you live for this shit. So
yeah.
that's a cool feeling. So, all right, guys, until next time, Chris, little Dave, we are absolutely done.